but I want to tell you about the journey we're on. In Sweden, I got really inspired by how people were living. It's very common in Sweden for people to have, even the people who live in apartments, to have colony lots, to start to have spaces to grow food. People even grew food on rooftops, and it really got me tuning into even more focused on how we could actually integrate growing food for our family. And so when we moved back to San Diego, part of our vision was to really transform our yard and use the space that we have to grow food. And that was important to me because I really want to have the kids connected to the food that they're eating and having them involved in growing what they eat. And so let me show you a little bit about what we've done back here just in the past few months since coming back to San Diego. All right, so let me show you what we have here in the backyard. What we had here at the house before we moved to Sweden was we had grass and landscaping and a couple small boxes for growing things. And I think our motto coming back to San Diego was, let's grow food, not grass. And so let me show you what we did. We literally ripped everything out and we put in some beautiful growing boxes, and we've got kale, and we've got spinach, and we've got beets, and all sorts of amazing food that we're growing throughout the garden. And so we've really tried to efficiently use all the space here at the house, including the back of the yard. And we're really trying to grow things that work well in San Diego, and so we've got an apple tree here that is suited well to this warm climate, and we've then putting trees along the back. So we've got our avocado tree, and then we've put in trees here, clementine and peach trees, to really use this space of the garden as well. And water conservation has been really important to us. So one of the things about ripping out the lawn was that we didn't have the lawn to water. And what's interesting to me, with all of this to water in the front and the back of the house, we're using about half the water for a family of 5 that a single person who rented this house the year before we moved back to Sweden. So, all right, so on the side of the house we have our chickens. We've got 5 chickens. We call them the cutest composters on our little homestead. So all of our food scraps come out here in the morning, which they then eat up, and they give us eggs, and we then take the chicken poop, and I'll show you our compost that we then use to then nourish the soil as we continue to grow. All right, here is our compost where the chicken poop goes, and so here we are creating the nourishment for the beds as we will rotate them through. And as you see behind me, this is where our seed production area. So here we're always producing seeds to be planted, so that as the plants as our vegetables produce and then to be replaced, that we've got this ready to go into the ground.
What other compost do we do?
Oh yeah, and we have a bokashi compost, and so the food scraps that the chickens don't get, we do in a bokashi compost, which is a fermented compost, and it takes a couple of months to get that ready to go into the ground, and so we use one end of our yard to basically let that get ready to nourish the soil. All right, so one of the debates that Fredrika and I had was what to do with the front yard, because much like the backyard, the front yard was filled with grass and landscaping that was just using lots of water, and I felt pretty strongly that we really needed to use the front yard too. So we tore everything out and we started to build beds in the front yard. And we actually started with just these 3 simple ones over here. The idea was that each of our 3 children could have a bed that they could choose what to plant in and help cultivate. But then we kept going, and we put in 2 more beds as well as some fruit trees in the front. So let me walk you through and show you them. All right, so when we started, the only thing that was here was this fig tree. It doesn't look as good now because it's in the winter, but we planted this when my son was born. And now we've added to it. So in the back, we've got citrus trees, oranges, mandarins, and lemons across the back. And then as you can see, we've got these big, beautiful growing beds. And so we're starting here with some broccoli that we're growing. And we've got celery that we're growing here in the middle. And then onions and
Swiss chard.
and Swiss chard on the over here, and then down here we've got kohlrabi here, more onions, and then we've been doing a little experiment over here. We've got carrots on the whole far side of this bed. These first carrots we tried growing from seeds in little containers to grow them and then transplant them, and then we're experimenting with just putting seeds right in the beds over here just to learn to see which does better for us. All right, so we've always grown potatoes in pots, and we had this unused space on the side of the house, and we thought, boy, we eat a lot of potatoes with a family of 5. Let's create a big potato run. And so you see here are potatoes. They've been in the ground for about 6 weeks, and we've got this nice long potato run that we've put together. And we've got potatoes, and then at the end we got sweet potatoes. And this is just a huge space that used to be grass that now we've reclaimed. And as you can see here, we got about 2 months worth of potatoes that will come up, and in the middle, you can't quite see that yet, there's a few things starting to come up. By the time we've eaten through the potatoes on this side, we should start to have the ones in the middle coming up, so we can kind of rotate this around and around. And we've also used the front of the house. We've got raspberries over to my right, and then on the other side of the driveway, a whole line of tomatoes to use it. So we're really trying to use the best we can all the space that we have available.